one, and there he is.
Perfect.
One
viewer, and I bet it's my sister.
Did you see? Where did you see the one viewer? Again?
No, I'm just joking.
Oh, okay. All right. Yeah, I didn't think it would be that fast. Wait, you got brothers and nobody else watches you?
Brother's back from Canada today.
Was he up there fishing or something?
Yep, fishing, working on the cabin up there. And
you guys have a cabin up there, or he does?
Yep.
So the Conrad family.
Well, it was my great aunt and uncle's cabin.
Oh,
they got it in 1950s sometime. Little log cabin they built on through the years. They passed it off to their youngest son, and then just schedule wise, no one from their family was really able to get up there, and we were about the only people that went up every summer. And they approached us in maybe 2012, 2013 and said, do you guys want to take over the cabin? And it took about half a second to say yes. And so I haven't been up there since 19. I had planned to go earlier this month, and then kids got COVID. And so my luck, I would travel the 8 hours up to International Falls. They'd random test me. I'd test positive, and then I'd trek 8 hours back into town.
Well, that's I would like a fuller debate between your sister, Nikki, the supervisor, and her opponent, Mr. Simmons, because the sole reason that he's running is because of the mask mandate that Nikki was,
back in 2020.
Was pretty insistent on there for a while. And I would like to see that amplified a little bit further. I really would. I think that's a debate worth having. The separation at our level of government, and we're talking city and county. When should a serious illness, and I almost died of it, and so did my son. I respect COVID, and I hate it at the same time. But when do authorities have the right to say, you must do this?
And so we started that off at the city level. And that, it was a hot debate back then. It's probably still a hot debate now, although with the state rules, you can't do it anymore.
You can't do it anymore?
The state prohibited, I think, any local jurisdictions from enacting anything like that.
Well, that's not good.
And our approach at the city, which the county essentially mirrored, was that we didn't want any penalties. It wasn't going to be enforced. We weren't going to ask law enforcement to go out and start handing out fines or anything like that.
That might have been too much.
We passed it as a resolution, but essentially what it was is, hey, our hospitals are overcrowded. Nursing homes, hospitals, administrators across the board were coming to us and saying, we have to do something. We're shipping people out to other hospitals. We got people, unfortunately, dying left and right.
Yes.
What can we do? And so I thought from the city level, and eventually what the county did, it was a good balancing act, because what it really boiled down to was it was just a strong recommendation. Please do this. You didn't have to do it. You weren't going to get fined. Nobody was going to hang you up for it or anything like that.
I'd really like to know, the candidates and even the general public, when does an entity of government, and of course we're just talking about the Board of Supervisors, City Council here, it's not like you're Biden or something. When does that an entity of the government have a right to step in and say, you must do this, even though you don't want to, because the greater good must prevail here? That's always something that's intrigued me. Where is that line at?
There's legal precedent to allow it, which obviously there was. Otherwise, I wouldn't have pushed for anything to get passed. But
that's right. I identify you so closely with baseball. I sometimes forget you're a lawyer.
Don't hold that against me.
I won't.
But even the discussions we had in COVID, as you attested to in your own personal experience, there's a lot of people it didn't really affect, but there are a heck of a lot of people that it did damage to them, and it continues to do damage to them.
Oh, yeah.
And this was a very, very serious illness for a lot of people. And despite that, look at where we were. We didn't want penalties. We didn't want, because at the end of the day, this is still America. It's freedom. It's liberties. And you really want to push people to do at least what I thought in my own mind was the right thing to do at that point. There were no tools in our toolkit to really combat this, other than at that time they were saying, just please mask up. And so that was the tool we had. But even despite all that, despite everything happening, I personally, in the city council, in the county, everybody did basically the same thing. We didn't want to cross that line in the sand to really, and I was at the forum the other day, and there was talk of infringing on liberties and rights.
You were at the farm.
At the forum.
Forum, I beg your
Yes.
pardon.
Yep, talking about how this violated liberties and rights. At the end of the day, those resolutions didn't do anything.
Yeah.
There were no teeth to them whatsoever.
But it is a discussion we need to have.
It is a discussion.
Whether that had any teeth in them or not.
Well, and I think the discussion would be
this is not something you want to leave hanging out
there. If you now, I don't think what we did violated anybody's right. But
it was a fight worth having at the time. I remember.
If you were to put teeth into a similar resolution in the future, that is a whole separate conversation where, to your point, that is a fierce conversation that needs to be had. And from my perspective, even on the vaccination front, I'm fully vaccinated. I encourage everybody to do that. But there started to be conversations of we need to mandate vaccines. And as much as I personally think that that's a great idea, someone else may not think that way. And I'm comfortable with that. I don't believe it should be mandated. And I think that that's kind of where things were kind of arching into. And that's where, I, again, voted in favor of our city resolution for masks. But there's a line. And I think at a national level, it was beginning to be crossed in some of the conversations. I don't think we ever got to the point, but
I really wish I wasn't ready for this to be an issue at the supervisor forum. And we should really bring Mr. Simmons and Nikki Conrad in here to have this debate. By the way, let me offer this radio station for an open debate with an open phone. By that I mean anybody can call in. Let me offer this radio station for an hour or however long it takes between Supervisor Conrad and Mr. Reggie Simmons to come here and debate the merits of masking and personal liberty as opposed to governmental responsibility.
Yeah.
I went back home that night and called up the Spanish flu.
Mm-hmm.
Now, COVID, as bad as it was and as bad as it continues to be, wasn't as bad as the Spanish flu.
Yep.
People would get up in the morning feeling fine and be dead in the middle of the afternoon.
Yeah.
That's how vigorous and vicious that flu strain was.
Mm-hmm.
And it just went away. It just mutated and it's still out there somewhere.
Well, and you see that even now with COVID is that, at the start, everybody said, it's just the flu.
It's just the flu.
That first strain of COVID wasn't just respiratory. It caused the inflammation within all vital organs, which is why we saw so many people get desperately sick and die. Whereas the current strains right now are really more of just a respiratory type thing. They're not really going after those vital organs. And so you're seeing it go from what was a very, very serious, very deadly disease to now it's kind of mutated more into essentially kind of your kind of viral strains, which I think going forward, it's going to be like a flu shot.
I hope
what you have is you try to get the formula right ahead of the current season to try to address it. And we hope we don't get back to that kind of inflammatory response that we saw in that first big wave where people just swelling everywhere, and that was shutting down their organs, causing issues. So
my son lives down in Lynn County, man. I mean,
he had it bad too, didn't he?
Oh, he nearly died in December. Yeah. He was in a medically induced coma for 10 days. And he very nearly died. And his COVID was worse than mine.
Yeah.
I never felt so helpless. Of course, I'd go to the hospital where he was, but they wouldn't let me up on the floor. But
that's got to be so frustrating.
It really was. All I could do was go to his house. Anyway, Nevin Conrad is our guest at AM 1400 KBFT, the voice of Fort Dodge. I'll have to bring Supervisor Conrad and Mr. Simmons in here if I can get them in here, because I think this is a debate worth having. I know when Sheriff Fleener decided to have detectors at the courthouse and not to allow weapons in the courthouse, I felt compelled to go over there and make an individual gun rights argument. Myself and El Deuterino went over there.
Yeah.
We must have been doing all right, because all of a sudden the room was full of courthouse employees who were going to tell us. But as time went on, I think Luke was right. I'm pretty sure. Well, I know Luke was right.
Well, even just being in the legal profession, I get to hear stories here and there of individuals or incidents that occur. And the unfortunate part of the world we live in today is you got a lot of sick people out there that may not be vocal and may just show up someday unannounced and do horrific things. And it doesn't have to be elected officials. They could have a grudge against the most random employee that you might think of, and you just never know. So that additional kind of line in there, I think, given the focal that courthouse is the focal point of the county, makes sense. I would think, looking
right
back.
next door to us over here, there is there's a house, first of all, and there's an apartment house next to where Dr. Shelley and Mergen are on the corner. And behind that apartment house a few years ago, there was a double murder.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm just giving the location or bringing this up because so people can focus on the location. I try to walk every now and then. So I'm out walking with my cane. I have it's not a cane, it's a walking stick, 5 feet high. And I'm walking down the street, and there's this large woman, very big, about 30 years old, screaming at the top of her head, unintelligible to nobody in particular.
Yeah.
Now, and I have told the story. Last week, I did a whole sequence on homeless in Fort Dodge. Mm-hmm. During the great downtown country jam, which I enjoyed myself. Let me tip my hat to everybody, Jim Reed and everybody involved in that. I saw a homeless man and took his picture and brought Brian Beidelman in and other people. Brian's chaplain over at Beacon of Hope, and they're aware of him. And this man's name is William, and he wants to remain homeless. Yeah. That's his deal. He just wants to, I don't remember if Brian said it was because he liked doing drugs and they won't let him doing drugs in Beacon of Hope or what. I don't remember if he said that or not, but it's a situation. It challenges. And I talk with Joe Coleman on the Catholic response and the Catholic Christian response, and also Austin Hill, Pastor Hill, about the Christian response to a man who is homeless and wants to stay that way. Yeah. Is this all about us? Do we want to rescue him because we have a rescue fantasy?
Fair point.
Fair point.
And there's so many homelessness is a lot like, I think you could tie it into the criminal matters as well too, or even going separate from that route, housing and recruitment of workforce. There's so many moving pieces that go to it, and you can't just attack one, because that's not going to solve it. But that's what makes it difficult, is you have to combat 3-4 different things to really get to the encompassing root of it all. And there's just no magic bullet to do these sort of things. And that's, I think, to your extent, there's plenty of people that want to help. It's just, I don't know if anybody has the answer to what's going to work. And you just get frustrated because it's an emotional topic, especially when you see other human beings.
That's right.
Especially in sometimes the conditions that they're living in. Now, some may choose that, but others involuntarily are homeless, and you want to do what you can, but there's so many moving pieces as to why they're there and the systems that operate that kind of keep them there, and it just end up spinning your wheels, and it just frustrates you even further.
I'm one who believes God speaks to me. Now, when I pulled into the parking lot behind McGregor's and saw that homeless guy, I was suddenly challenged, I think, by my belief. Okay, here's your challenge. What are you going to do? Yeah. And it's awful hard for me to accept mind my own business.
No.
It's just not in me.
Mike Divine.
And I don't think I'm alone in that in this particular case.
Yeah.
In this particular case. By the way, Supervisor Nikki Conrad has accepted the challenge that I made. Now, it's not really a challenge on my part. It's an offer to host a debate for the supervisor candidates. And Tommy Coleman and Austin Hike can get involved in this as well, and we can pick a pipeline for their deal. Because Austin's main thing is eminent domain, and that's a very worthy discussion. Mm-hmm. But in this particular case, since Mr. Simmons has made Supervisor Conrad's masking position kind of central to his campaign, I think it's worthy. I think it's bigger than just the supervisor race, to be honest with you. I think it's something that we should talk about as a community. And since we do have this one particular supervisor's race that focuses on this particular issue, we should take advantage of it. Now, I know Mr. Simmons, and I know it because I was at the debate Tuesday, as you were.
Yeah.
I know Mr. Simmons, the delivery driver, and I don't know if he's in earshot of this
Not
radio
sure.
station or not. Well, yeah, we don't know, but he should be listening to KBFD because I think it should be a requirement for any intelligent person in Central Iowa. But if anybody, I'm sure there's some people who know Mr. Simmons. Please pass the offer on to him. And that's all it is an offer. We'd have to have an in-studio time. That might be difficult for Mr. Simmons. He works every single day. I think Nikki would accommodate him if we wanted to do it in the evening sometimes, and I would be certainly willing to do that. So if anybody, and I don't know how to get a hold of Mr. Simmons. I just spoke with him Tuesday for the very first time, introduced myself, and made an offer to be on my program. Yeah. That was it. So we can do that. But anyway, I want to take a short break. Can we, we've been talking about Nikki and the supervisor.
I cleared the schedule.
You cleared the schedule?
Yes.
I
am dressed up for you.
You are dressed for success. Well, okay. We're going to take a Sure, I don't think.
And I wonder if with Ohtani, we're just going to get used to him. Like, I don't think this is a anomaly type year for him. I think this is what we're going to regularly see out of him. And so is that going to diminish how special of a player he is, because we're going to get used to seeing this kind of over and over?
Not for a while, but every generation is better than the last. A lot of people want to talk about, Babe Ruth. Nobody will ever break his record. I'll tell you what, Babe Ruth was a guy who drank a lot of beer, ate hot dogs, was overweight. And yeah, he could pitch, but I'll tell you, Max Scherzer would throw the ball past him like nothing. Clayton Kershaw out in Los Angeles, yeah, he would back him off the plate, then strike him out. Babe would not get it done. And frankly, Hank Aaron, who I admired my whole life, all of his life, great baseball player of my youth, the game has changed since he played.
Your description of Babe Ruth described me exactly, except for being able to pitch and hit.
But you weren't
overweight, eats a lot of hot dogs.
I eat a lot of hot dogs. Hey, listen, I'm the biggest frustrated sports fan in the United States of America. I get Coolman and Mulholland in here all the time. They want to walk in here like they just came from the locker room or something. Yeah, I passed for 5,000 yards today and scored 78 points in the first quarter of the basketball game. Yeah, you're a moron, Mike. Coolman may have actually done that, but Mulholland, he spent a little time knocked out on the field. Anyway, we had a lot of things happen at the city that I wanted to talk to you about, and maybe get a little background, or at least why you voted the way that you did.
Yep.
So first of all, we want to talk about deer management. And that I read the city plan, and it's pretty precise. And if that's followed, we should be just fine. There's several. I wouldn't say I don't want to use the phrase hoops to jump through. I guess I just did. But there are several provisions that will prevent people from being hurt, or property from being hurt. And that should be seen as right and correct and serious.
I agree. I think the way that ordinance was tailored, you could have your person that doesn't follow the rules and goes out and does something.
Of course, you're going to have that.
Avoiding that kind of what if scenario, it's tailored enough. You never can say definitively, but I don't think anybody's ever going to get hurt. I don't think there's ever going to be any property damage. So we had 3 votes on that. First vote, I voted in favor of it because realistically, there's a ton of deer, and the DNRs come to us and said, the size of the herd poses risk for disease among the herd, all that other stuff. So went off what the DNR said. And then the second meeting, we're hearing feedback from the people in attendance, and it got to me to vote, and I kind of stuttered. I had this thought that came through my head of, well, how are we going to know if this is successful, if this ordinance does what we want it to do? Because what normally happens is the DNR comes in and they do an aerial survey and do a head count of the deer. Well, for whatever reason, we've been talking about this thing for years. We've never done that. And there's some expense to it, but in my mind, we spend a lot more on other projects that go over budget. That it's not too big of a deal. And my focus shifted as to, I still think something probably needs to be done, but with our ordinance in place, we have no baseline to compare it to. So if a future council in 2, 3, 4 years is looking at this going, we still have a lot of deer, is what we're doing enough? We don't have any way of tracking that, because we don't have a baseline number to tell, okay, in 2023 and 2024, we had a total of 40 does harvested, but the population increased by 60. So it's a net 20 increase. We just have no way of knowing. And so this wouldn't even go into effect until next year, or isn't going to go into effect until next year. And my approach was, hey, we're already kind of in fall. The leaves are going to be falling off the trees. Let's hire the DNR to come in and give us a head count.
Right.
And then we can still do this ordinance if we want to in January and February. Plenty of time to still do what this ordinance does, which is set it up for the fall of 23. And then it gives us a number, because I'm not going to be on the next council that comes up. But whoever's on it, then they can have data to show, hey, what we're doing is working. We're cutting back the population. Or they can see, this isn't working.
Right.
And we need to probably try to think of something else. And what I'm concerned about is that lack of a baseline figure is just going to lead in future years to us saying, well, give it time. Give it time. It's
Right.
working without knowing whether or not it's working. And so I just kind of more on philosophical reasons switched to a no vote for 2 and 3 in that string of votes. It still ultimately passed. So it will take effect next year.
Despite your leadership?
Despite, if you want to call it
Menke was more
leadership.
persuasive. Who? Allstott?
Menke was a no vote all the way.
Menke was a no vote
through.
all the way.
Yeah,
I think that's right.
Regardless of that, that's just that's where I was at with everything. But it was passed. It will go into effect. There's some things to iron out with the DNR in the state going forward. But I believe I'm probably off. I think September, October next year is when it would officially open up. But if you look at the map of the city, there are very limited properties that qualify. And the DNR regulations for bow hunting say that you can't be within 200 yards of a building. So when you add
200 yards?
200 yards of a building. So when you add
there's no hunting within the city limits then.
It dramatically shrinks, and realistically your areas are going to be north of town just once you get past kind of the Woodlands area, the south of Harlan Rogers is going to be your main area, and then you get out to like the industrial park area. I think that would qualify, but the deer are along the river and creeks. I don't think there's too big of a deer population issue out by like Deckers out there. So that's where I'm at. That's where it's going.
Just by coincidence, I walked out of the house this morning. I was going down to Zakir's to have breakfast with a guy. And when I turned to my left, I don't live far from the old Corpus Christi church, Turned to my left, and there was 4 or 5 deer in the parking lot,
and they are not scared of humans.
Whatsoever. They looked at me like, "What are you doing here?"
Yeah, get off our turf.
Yeah, they really do.
Yeah, it's a daily occurrence at our house because we're right across from a little ravine, and
is that right?
They're in our yard all the time, and my biggest thing I'm trying to get my kids to realize is that when it gets to rut season. And there's a buck and a doe out there.
Always
is we'll pull up in our driveway, and I say we can't get out of the truck until they leave, because the last thing I want is a little 2-year-old bobbing around and this buck to get aggressive
charging
towards him.
Oh, it'll happen.
Trying to get them in that mindset of, hey, just they may not be scared of us anymore within the city limits, but just give them space, let them kind of go on their way.
I don't know I've had possum on 4th Avenue North up by Old Junior High here, just up the street. A bunch of them. They have not gotten a great welcome from me. I have a shortened baseball bat, but I'm getting too old to catch them.
Yeah. We used to, at my parents' old house, we would have issues with raccoons, but they would travel through the storm sewers.
Yeah.
You'd see them just kind of the little tunnels all throughout town. They just follow through those.
I lived on 3rd Avenue North, just a block north of Randall's for several years, many years I lived there. And my wife and I, we had garbage through the week, and we'd put it in bags on the front porch. Or I'd come home at night sometimes from working in the evening, and there'd be half a dozen coons on the front steps. Maybe not that many, but 3 or 4 coons trying to get into the front porch because they smelled the garbage a block away or however long they do it. But, fortunately they left, because I have actually had encounters with angry coons. Raccoons, and I don't want that.
Yeah. Side question.
Yes.
Does anything beat a Randall's donut?
Let me see.
I'm young enough where I just kind of got phased out from Randall's, but I'm old enough to remember Randall's and their donuts.
I shopped there for years. I shopped there when it was the old store.
Yep.
It was the first grocery store. Maybe, I don't know. I got here quite a long time ago, probably before your time. And Hy-Vee was out where the drug town was, and it's now something else.
Yep.
But we lived in that neighborhood in another house, and we always went to Randall's.
Yep.
And it was always a great convenience store. And I was so sorry when they closed. And now we got a Fairway downtown, which is okay.
Yeah. I just remember the donuts.
I don't get my groceries at Walmart. I'm not a Walmart guy.
Yeah.
They don't. They lower wages, and they don't advertise on radio, so the hell with them.
And they don't staff their checkout lanes.
They don't, do they? And again, I had it, and I don't want to sound racist at all, but I had a problem this morning. I don't even want to say the company. Well, it was AT&T. Okay, it's AT&T. And they sent me this message, we got a problem with you. So I call up and I get somebody who I can't understand, and I don't know, part of it's probably because I'm getting old, but really the problem is the person I'm speaking with, it's English as a second language. And they're better at their second language than I am. I have no second language,
Yeah.
you know? But it's very frustrating because I just want to do business and get the hell off the phone.
Yeah.
You know, but that's the world we live in. I guess we're not going to change. I implore, ladies and gentlemen, as a long-term goal, we get back to be willing to paying for service, be willing to pay people to bag our groceries and to ring our groceries up, and to have people we can communicate with. As a matter of fact, can we get? This is another thing. Fort Dutch Fiber. Will that offer a local phone service? Do you know?
Yes. So it's basically the same as other companies like that, with the exception of we're not offering like a city-owned television. I think we're going to contract with another company that would provide that, but the city is providing both internet and phone.
So
options.
No more Eve's Kitchen. Or it seems to me, what a bummer. No, I would encourage everybody to go get a local phone. I'm going to get one then, if that's the deal. Because, I tried to buy a new phone from Verizon, the Verizon store. I had to make an appointment. Then when I showed up for the appointment on time, the guy I had an appointment with was busy and I would have to come back later. So I thought, okay. I'd already been around with AT&T, and their service was worse.
Yeah.
So we now have Verizon and AT&T in town with lousy service. Yeah. So help me out.
Can I digress and pull my soapbox out for 1 second?
This is your show. Okay. This is the Nevin Conrad Hour.
We're talking about checkout lanes. Mm-hmm. I'm going to go on a very, very small, very short rant here. Checkout lanes are now becoming not staffed. So they push it to the self-checkout lanes now. But yet they have people, usually in multiples, standing there to make sure that they watch you do the self-checkout lanes. Could we not just take those people and put them in the checkout lanes?
No, that wouldn't serve the long-term purpose, though. That wouldn't serve the long-term. It happened to me at Hy-Vee. I was going to go through one of the automated, whatever they are, do-it-yourself things. And I had grapes, and I had bananas, and I had pears.
Yep.
Well, how in the hell do you do that? And the guy behind.
Did you miss your employee training?
I guess I did. There was a guy behind me about 40, and he said, "This is what you got to do." Yeah. Friendly guy, and he had ice cream in his hands. Yeah. He was trying to get the old fellow to move along. My hands are getting cold. My ice cream is hell. Come on, man. He was a really nice guy. He really was. Anyway, let's talk about ATVs. Well, nobody wants to say ATVs, but there was a lot of resistance to the idea of letting off-road vehicles on the city streets. If you remember, Jim, the former county attorney, wanted to have golf carts downtown for a while, which I opposed. I thought golf carts were too much. But I guess I'd like to start the question: if we can do these vehicles, why can't we do golf carts?
That's a fair question, and it was raised at the council meeting as well too, in the context of ATVs. So the ordinance that we had the first reading for is UTVs, and so the way that they've explained it is ATVs you straddle, whereas the UTVs more have like the bench type seats, and usually they've got the roll cages on them too.
So we're talking ATVs, the ones
ATVs are not allowed under the current ordinance.
The ones that are straddled.
Yeah, the straddle, which you would hop up to straddle. Those are not allowed at the moment. And initially, I was very receptive to the safety arguments. I know we had heard when this was discussed years ago from Decker Truck Line, they were very concerned, specifically P59 coming into their place about those as well. Mm-hmm. And then I had kind of an epiphany moment where I was coming back from my mom's house. She lives in the townhomes behind Friendship Haven. And it was 10:30 at night, and I'm going across the Kenyon Road Bridge, and I look at the westbound lanes, and there's 4 kids on those bird scooters going down Kenyon Road Bridge right in the middle of the road. And I was like, certainly a UTV is a heck of a lot safer with all the different safety features on that than a kid riding around on a motorized scooter down the Kenyon Road Bridge going about 8 miles per hour.
Well, and we're going to have that problem, and that shouldn't have happened, by the way. I don't know if that's against our city ordinances or regulations or not, but it should be.
It's allowed at the moment because, and David brought this up, that they're essentially treated like bicycles. So that
they shouldn't be.
Bikes are allowed to be on the roads.
Is that a state thing
or a few things? I'm not 100% sure. I don't know that answer. But yeah, and that's so this, and they're authorized on kind of the main roads, not residential roads, and you have to be going from point A to point B.
Right.
It doesn't matter what your point A or point B is, but take the direct power out, and it's to eliminate people kind of hot dog and hot rodding it around the residential neighborhoods, making a bunch of noise and just going in circles
You
around
can
the
count that
neighborhood.
it's going to happen, you know.
It will happen, like everything. You're going to have stuff happen. I hate to mention the word fireworks, but happens with fireworks too. So
that first year was awful. I was just beating the drum for fireworks, and I sat out in my front porch that first year and went, "My God, what has happened here?"
yeah,
You know, just people were just abusing the privilege and defiant about it, and just some of my neighbors at the time, they moved away since, but they were just morons and just
yeah.
Well, we could do this now. We'll blast, these big explosions at midnight.
I don't know how people afforded it. Those things are so expensive.
That was another thing. Some of the people I see shooting off the biggest fireworks, they're not people of means.
Yeah.
I mean, they had to have blown up $500 to $1,000 worth of fireworks in one night.
Yep. Yeah. I don't
Wow.
know.
Do they accept food stamps at those fireworks temps or what?
It's a lot of money for those.
It's a lot of money for me. I'm not going to throw $1,000 away on gambling, but never. Come to now that I'm going to come clean. I'm going to casino and got clipped.
I don't want to see it blown up. I just want to see it just disappear.
Right. Politely taken off the table. Oh, better luck next time, you dummy. I think you could really beat the house. So what was what was the Conrad position then on did we allow the UTVs?
Yeah. It was a unanimous vote at the
It was
city
unanimous.
level.
So you were in favor of it?
Yep. And realistically, I know
and Deckers were concerned on P59 because they had truck drivers.
They were not there at this past meeting. This is when we originally talked about it years ago, before the county did their stuff, going from the OHV park out there. And so we hadn't heard from Deckers, but I believe their position is still the same. They view it as a potential safety issue with their trucks.
That is a trick.
And
I've driven truck. It's
Well, in state law caps these at 35 miles per hour. They can go faster than that, but by state law, they're not allowed to exceed 35 miles per hour, regardless of whether it's a 55 mile per hour zone, 45 mile per hour zone. They're capped at 35, regardless of what zone there is. And that was kind of my one question or concern with our ordinance, is that we've got a very limited number of areas in town where they'll be authorized to drive on where the speed limit's higher than 35, but by state law and by our ordinance, which mimics the state law, they can't go faster than 35. So you may be coming back from the country club going down the Carl King Viaduct over there and stuck behind one because they're maxed out at 35 when you can realistically, I think it's 50 on that road you can go.
I passed a police car the other day at night. I didn't really, I mean, it was at dusk and I'm in my usual hurry.
And you said things you can't say on air.
Yeah, I got it right next to him, and I'm like, oh man. But
here we go.
But again, due to my truck driving training, I downshifted in my Toyota Camry because I didn't want him to see the brake lights come on because that guy's speeding and he's not, So I was successful. I got my speed down because I to be honest, I didn't know how fast I was going, but if I was passing him, it was probably too much. Nevin City Council member Nevin Conrad is our guest. We just have a couple of minutes here. We had an incident at the school, and I would just like to give a big shout out and a warm thanks to our law enforcement people for the episode at our middle school, which was shocking to everybody and very frightening to the parents. And it makes me sick. It just makes me sick that we have those things going on in our schools. And it was, once again, that sort of thing was brought home to us. Does the council believe they have a good enough budget for the police department? Is Roger Porter satisfied with what he's getting?
So,
does he need something else? After an episode like that, I'm ready to give him whatever he wants.
I've kind of raised it in the past that I would like to see an additional officer for each shift. There's obviously it's city government, so there's a lot that goes into that.
So 3 more police officers?
Yep. There's salary, there's benefits, there's all that. And coupled in the current environment where it's extremely difficult to get law enforcement officers in general.
Why is that?
I think you go
The
back
George Floyd thing, or
you go back a couple years, and it's I, I think some of it's probably just coincidental timing, but there's just a lot of people that, why go out and risk your life and just
for an
get,
ungrateful public? That's a
yeah.
point. That who
And
knows?
so it's difficult to do that, but there is traction. I believe David and Roger are working on trying to line it up so that we can see either that happen or something getting towards that path happening, which would be great to see. Just another officer to take some of the work away from the other ones that are on patrol, and to help out would be a big deal. We're gonna have crime. Crime's never gonna go away anywhere.
In any town.
And unfortunately, it seems like in Fort Dodge, we go in little spells where there's a
Mhm.
cluster of shootings that happen in this month of this year, and we don't hear anything really else for a while. But we'll see.
All right.
I trust our police department.
case seaweed 24 3/4, $9.91.5. Spring wheat December 16 higher at $9.82. And live cattle October 85 lower 143.27. December live cattle down 72 at 147.05. Feeder cattle October 315 lower 174.17. November down 320 174.62. Lean hogs October 22 lower 89.22. December hogs 50 higher 76.22 on Friday.
At yourfortdodge.com, on Twitter at jmike1400.
Okay, and as I said just a minute ago, Mayor Matt Bermick's in the studio, so you have a question or comment, it's 515-955-1400, 515-955-1400. Matt, you might want to back up a little bit. If you see on StreamYard here, the camera's going up your nose. It's making you look like you have huge nostrils. Oh, there's a good shot. Yeah, a long cylindrical object in your face. You don't want that, Matt. It's bad object. Very bad optics. There you go. There's the mayor of Fort Dodge. Ladies and gentlemen.
Nothing more fun than being on video.
What? You don't like it?
I don't care.
No, your mom knows you're a good-looking guy.
That's debatable.
Well, you got two women, your mom and your wife. I don't
Yeah.
know why. I suppose Michelle still does. I don't know. I haven't seen Michelle in a long time. How's Michelle doing? She's a great girl.
She's wonderful.
I bet she is. There's no doubt about it. Seriously and absolutely, I want to compliment the Fort Dodge Police Department. There was a very frightening incident at the Fort Dodge Middle School earlier this week. Our radio station was all over it, of course. Actually, Brooke Bickford, the news director, was on the air with me. And she got a text that something was going on at the middle school, that there might have been a threat at the middle school while we were on the air. So she followed up on it with her phone, and then she just went over to the middle school. So it was just terrific. And of course, I wanted to talk with Roger, and Roger was good enough to come right over yesterday and lay out what had gone on as far as, first of all, this particular incident, but more importantly, he told us about the training that goes on with the Fort Dodge Police Department and in conjunction with the Fort Dodge School District, which was, I think, reassuring. Roger,
I agree. I think, out of all things that happen, and as scary as that is, the one thing that from my perspective, and talking both to representatives from the school district as well as our PD, is the training and all the different protocols that had been put in place all worked.
mm-hmm.
And, the result, there's a young man that's in some serious trouble, but everyone was kept
Well, he
safe.
was in serious trouble before this week. Obviously, if he's got that sort of thing in his mind, thank God.
Yeah.
Thank God we were able to get to him before something terrible did happen.
Right.
And the real hero of the story, of course, is the student that he told, go to the bathroom because I'm going to shoot up the place. Apparently, was what was happening. This young man went right to the authorities. And
Yeah, I mean,
reported it.
I can't confirm what was said that's
what's been reported.
Yeah.
I'm not trying to put words in your mouth.
No, I know you're not. I can't confirm or deny what actually was said.
What are you, a perp?
No,
I'm
not. I don't. And you have to say I've been consistent over the 13 years. I won't talk about an active.
Come on, if we can't kid around a little bit, come on.
Oh no, I'm fine with kidding around. I've been you've been irritating about it a few times where you're like, come on, Matt. And I'm like, no, I can't do it. I don't break that rule with the police department. If they're investigating something and they tell me things, I just don't ever repeat them.
Well, that's perfectly all right, especially in this case. It's just a very, very bad case. It sounded too reminiscent of some terrible situations that happen around the country. Parents were concerned. I don't know what happened with the Fort Dodge schools there a couple of weeks ago or whenever it was, when they had a bomb threat and didn't report for 2 days. I don't know what was up with that deal, but parents need to be, they need to be informed. And I realized that there were some parents, very anxious parents, out to the Fort Dodge Middle School because their children hadn't been released yet and all those sort of things. But,
Sure.
That's the good news is that the system worked.
It did. The protocols, the training, the procedures that we had worked with the district on implementing, as well as not just Fort Dodge PD, but the Webster County Sheriff's Department, and the school system, they worked, people executed them, and people were kept safe. If you can have an active dry run, this was it. It was a real live event that happened, and people executed the protocols and procedures that they needed to. From the feedback I've gotten, what we've taught people, what we've worked with our community to learn about how to respond worked.
Yeah.
So hopefully it never happens again, but if it does, we know that people know how to execute the protocols and procedures that they were taught.
Well, in just a week before that, I went over to the First Presbyterian Church because Randy Kuhlman was putting on a presentation about, perverts on the internet, stalking young children. There was a couple of examples given of grown men impersonating 13 and 14-year-old boys, and they lure girls in of the same age and then have them do terrible things.
Yeah.
It can be a scary world, but it's much less frightening if we know it's there and we have some way to fight back or guard ourselves and our children.
Sure.
And Roger Porter is he's not an excitable guy, and he was very calm.
He has a calm demeanor.
Yeah, he has a calm demeanor, and I think
I've seen a little bit more fire out of him than probably most people.
Well, I'm sure that's true, but he was able to explain it in a calm way. We didn't, what we didn't need is people getting hysterical.
He's seen me pretty worked up a few times too. So
I've seen you worked up a couple of times.
Yeah.
I mean,
usually you're the cause.
I can't hardly believe that. I'm just some old guy over here
right.
at the radio station. By the way, should there be an age limit as far as being on the city council? Because I think Minky and Olstad, I think they're both younger than I am. But
that would be an act of discrimination.
Really? I suppose so.
I think that age is one of those items listed that
age discrimination.
Yeah.
Well, I guess we do have a president who's older than Moses. But
yeah.
I thought maybe not. Aren't there mandatory retirement ages in some state agencies, or do you know? No,
I'm not aware of any.
Okay. Well,
I mean, I believe at certain age you can have issues with competency and cognitive ability.
Yeah. Oh, definitely. I'm going through it, man. I'll tell you.
I have days. I'm only 49 years old, and I have days that I can't remember what I did in the morning.
Get used to it, pal.
I get in the afternoon. I'm like, what did I do this morning? What was it I was going to do this afternoon? I mean, you just get kind of lost in the shuffle of the day.
Oh, I make fun of Biden.
Different directions.
I make fun of Biden on air, but the fact of the matter is, I've been out to Hy-Vee a couple of times, forgot where it was. I just, I mean, it didn't
forgot what you went there for.
Well, no, even worse than that, I was out in the parking lot. I said, how do I get home? This is not Chicago or someplace where, it was just a temporary fleeting thing. But I know what's happening to Biden is going to happen to me sooner or later.
Probably happened to all of us.
Yeah. Well, it's just part of the whole process. Had Nevin Conrad on today. It was always a pleasure. I always like Nevin, and he's
a smart guy.
Smart guy, good baseball guy, and I told him on air. Sometimes I identify him so much with baseball that I forget he's a lawyer, but he is a lawyer, and he has that lawyer's way of explaining things in sequence and with logic.
Yeah,
that impressed me certainly. Nevin comes in here, but the other Nevin comes in here, but he and I just argue. So we did talk about some of the things that the city has done in this year, specifically the deer herd management. Did we talk about that last week? I think we did.
We've talked about deer management stuff a few times on air.
Okay,
I can't recall what we talked. Here we're back to we can't recall.
See, things. Nevin could. Nevin laid out the whole thing.
Yeah. He's, you get the memory bank full enough, and then it starts rejecting, taking more information.
I know it. Yeah, but no, he laid it out, and he was very good about it, and apparently there won't be yahoos and pickup trucks running around town with shotguns.
No, and he voted for it the first time. we read the ordinance, and then he voted against it the second 2 times.
Yeah. Minky didn't like it at all, did he?
No, he voted against it.
all
exactly.
of all.
But
3 times?
Minky, I think he definitely believes that there's issues with deer,
Yeah.
but I just think he wants more information, more data. He, for one, is not a believer in killing animals. So
No, that's right. He's got that veg head thing going on.
that's all right. People have different perspectives. It's just I like steak.
I wasn't really condemning him for
I know
it.
you weren't. I wasn't
mean-
saying you were. Why are you so sensitive today?
No, I just
Friday, you're
I'm a
tired?
very sensitive.
You know, I'm
person.
never. I think this is the first time I've ever been on your show on a Friday afternoon.
Yeah. that's
Generally,
true.
I do not take appointments after 2 p.m. on Fridays.
It's going to be that kind of world.
Yeah.
I was griping about that earlier today. I tried to buy a new phone from Verizon. I had to make an appointment, and when I got out there, the guy that I
Why
had
don't
to
you just buy it on your phone?
buy it, I can do that.
Do you have the Verizon app?
I have
Yeah,
it.
you can order it right there on your phone,
Really,
and they'll
Wow.
send it to your house, and you activate it, turn it on. It'll take a little while to populate the new information on the old one, but you just lay the 2 phones right next to each other.
Okay.
And then if you want to trade your phone in, you send it back in a quilted envelope,
Right.
and then they give you the credit once they receive it. I
Well,
mean,
how
it's
do-
that simple.
Well, how do I get the porn off this phone?
Jesus.
I'm kidding with you.
You're not, but I don't. I'm just lost, man. You got me on that one. I have nothing. I'm done.
You're done.
I'm done.
We're all done.
It's Friday,
all right.
4 o'clock. I'm done.
No, I didn't know that, Matt. See, now I learned.
Yeah.
See, you're just that much younger than me that I can depend on you to surprise me every now and then. You know,
Yeah, you can order it right. If you have the Verizon app, you go on into the app and it'll give you option upgrade phone.
Right.
It'll show you're eligible or not eligible, or if
Right.
you want to trade in or not trade in. Just follow the sequences through the app. It'll send it right to your house. You get the new one, and now what you do is it'll command you to do some things. You get them unlocked, you set them right next to each other, and it'll literally move everything from one phone to the other.
no kidding.
Yeah.
Wow.
It's pretty slick.
I didn't know I could use my phone to call up like YouTube videos on my Samsung TV.
Oh yeah.
And I've been doing
You
it
can
about
use your phone as a remote for your TV.
I didn't know that
Yeah.
either. Yeah,
You can download a universal remote app on your phone and change your TV with your phone.
Wow. See, there's
You do
another
all
thing.
kinds of stuff.
2 things I've learned from you just in the last 10 minutes.
Well, I'm done now.
You have no more
I've
information.
got
to
nothing
depart.
else for you.
At least you're nicer about it. My son, I discovered that I could call up YouTube videos on my Samsung TV, and I told my son about it excitedly, and he looked at me and kind of sarcastically
Like,
said,
duh.
"No," he said, "Welcome to 2017, Dad."
Yeah.
But I watch it all the time now, so that's a great thing. Well, a remote app, well, that's pretty cool too. That is way
Yeah, they
cool.
have
You know,
various apps. You can do all kinds of cool stuff. You name it.
I've mentioned this on the air a couple of times this week. I was walking just from where I live.
Mhm.
I was walking south towards Central Avenue, right over here, right behind the building where these 2 guys got killed a couple of years ago.
Right.
Where, anyway, there was a woman over there, overweight, probably 30, white woman, just yelling her head off at nobody. And she seemed to be saying something, but the language was unintelligible. And I don't think it was an actual language. I just think she had a bad mental problem.
Yeah.
So I called the police, and I don't know what happened, but I felt I had a duty because of what we've been told in response to school shootings or threats of school shootings.
if you see something,
Say something, right?
Yeah.
So I saw something. I don't know.
Well,
Maybe
oddly-
she's harmless, but maybe she's
I think I know who that is. But oddly enough,
what, friend of yours?
no. I was on my way here, and I'm going down Central Avenue, and I saw what looked like a teenage kid carrying what looked like a long rifle.
Whoa!
And I'm like, what in the world? So I picked up the phone. I called Roger. I said, hey, are you still at work? And he said, yeah, I just left. And I said, hey, I it could be a BB gun. I don't know. But there's a kid walking down Central Avenue with a long rifle. And he's in, for those of you at home, when I say long rifle, that's like like
shotgun or a 22
shotgun,
rifle,
you know,
or any
long
kind
black
of-
wooden
right.
stock, those kind of things.
Those
If I say-
kind
It
of-
wasn't like which an AR is just a style of a caliber of
Mhm.
rifle, but we won't get into all the gun semantic stuff. But anyways, I said it could have been a BB gun, but I'm not 100% sure. You might want to have somebody check it out. So he had somebody go check it out, and it was a BB gun.
Okay.
Kid had a BB gun. And he looked pretty young, but the older I get, the younger people look.
That's I get I went through that.
So
one
yeah,
time.
if you see something, say something.
I go through that with Pastor Hill, Pastor Austin Hill, great guy. Comes
Yeah,
over here, First
he is.
Presbyterian Church,
He
senior
and his wife
pastor.
are great people.
Yeah, well, he's in his late 30s, but he looks younger.
Yeah, he does look young. He's young looking.
And I even went through that with Father Bain when he was here in
Mhm.
town. He was a much younger man, and he looked younger. And the girls just loved him. But
He was a good guy.
he was a good
Yeah,
guy,
I
and
liked
he
him.
was a deep well, man. He knew the Catholic faith. He was a very educated man in his
Mhm.
faith, and yeah, I was very impressed with him. I don't know where he is now. Last I heard, he was in Storm Lake. I think that's his hometown. I think Storm Lake.
I thought he was in Sioux City. I don't know.
It could be.
I
I shouldn't even say Storm Lake
lose
because I don't
track.
have any idea.
I don't know. I thought somebody mentioned he was in Sioux City, but I could be wrong.
But anyway, the idea, yeah, people get younger as you get older. You
They
you're
look
getting
younger.
older when the ministers and the priests look young to you. But that's a good question. Of course, I'm a supporter of gun rights, but people who carry long rifles into Walmart, I don't want to defend them. I think that's legal in the state of Iowa. Can an adult carry a long rifle right down Central Avenue? if
I
they want to?
believe it's legal, but this person didn't look like an adult to me. They looked like a teenager.
Well, I hope there would be.
Well, I mean,
age
I suppose
restriction.
you only have to be 18, but I don't know what, I'm not an expert on the law when it comes to your Second Amendment rights, but
Well, I used to get gun guys, from state gun rights organizations, but they start yelling. If
pretty
anybody's going
worked
to be
up.
yelling on this radio station, it's going to be me.
Yeah, yeah, I've heard that.
Oh, you've been talking to the Catholic girls again. Calm down over there.
So I'm not sure. I think you could probably walk around with a rifle on your shoulder if you wanted, and just kind of wander around the street. I don't know why you couldn't. I don't think I'd encourage people to do that, but I mean, a lot of those cities that were having riots and stuff, you'd see people on TV walking down the street with a rifle on their shoulder.
In mid-riot. Well,
Yeah.
that's great. Nevin and
I
I, just before we go to news break here.
I think that's like the open carry law. So
It probably is.
Yeah.
I have a right to open carry. I just don't.
yeah, I don't. I mean, I have my concealed permit's actually I think expired, but
I don't think you need it anymore, do you?
I don't see people say that, but I don't know.
I have one.
I had one, a license to carry concealed, and I used to actually keep a handgun fairly regularly available, but I just quit doing it because the more stats I read, the more often the person with the gun got injured by their own gun or
Yeah,
got used against them.
that's right.
I just quit carrying them. I keep them all locked up in a safe.
Yeah. Well,
I guess if God decides it's my time, it's my time.
well, you're a fatalist, aren't you? See, you're young enough to say that. Get lost in the Hy-Vee parking lot.
I haven't gotten lost in Hy-Vee parking lot.
If you have a question or comment for Mayor Matt Bemrick, 955-1400, 515-955-1400. We're going to
Support the Foundation's programs. Register for an event in your area. Volunteer to start one. And join Tunnel to Towers on its mission to do good and never forget. Donate $11 a month at t2t.org.
Divine Intervention is online at yourfortdodge.com, on Twitter at jmike1400.
Well, we're back with Mayor Matt Bemrick at AM 1400, KVFD, the voice for Dodge. Of course, we're on StreamYard, so go to my Facebook page. That's Michael Devine, or the radio station Facebook page, which is at AM 1400 KVFD. And ask the mayor a question. There's a comment section there. It's very easy to do. Just ask a question, and I'll relay it to the mayor, of course. Or you can call 955-1400. That's 515-955-1400. So St. Edmund Homecoming's tonight. I mean, you're St. Edmund Grand, but I'm going to New York. Bishop Garrigan, yeah. Algona, of course, is my old hometown, but it's odd. You go to I know you stayed in your hometown, but I go up there and I don't know anybody anymore.
Yeah, I suppose.
Every now and then I'll run into some oldster, and it was a guy I went to high school with. How are you again? And but I didn't know Bishop Garrigan had gone to 8-man. They were
I didn't either.
They were a powerhouse football team. Oh, I guess it's been some years ago now.
They were pretty good when my middle son Jackson was a senior. I think they went to state. I don't remember how far they got, but I think they went to state that year.
Okay.
That'd have been 2020.
Right. Yeah. So all your kids are out of high school now.
Everybody.
Wow.
I know.
Empty nest syndrome setting in.
Kinda. Kinda.
Have they all left home? Or are they living somewhere else?
So one of them was Minneapolis. My oldest lives here, works at CJ. And Jackson, our middle son, is going to Iowa Central, but he lives with some buddies in a rental house.
Yeah, well, you're 18 years old. The one thing you want to do is get out of the house.
And they're 20, 21, and 25. My
son turned 18, and you may think this is some sort of divine story, but this is what happened. He said, Dad, I'm 18 years old today. And I'm thinking of this because he's going to be 40 here in just a couple of days. He said, I'm 18 years old today, and he named a couple of his buddies. We're going down to the mini cinema, and there's nothing you can do to stop me because I'm old enough. And I said, hey, rock on, buddy. Have your first experience. It's not that big a deal. It's not going
to be that impressive.
It's not that. I mean, it's just not, just not that big a deal at all.
When I turned 18, you could buy lottery tickets.
Okay.
And then they switched that to 21. I don't know when they did that, but that was like the thing. I remember going and getting a bunch of scratch tickets, like $20 worth of
no kidding.
Tickets.
That was a deal for you.
A couple buddies. Yeah.
What's the drinking limit in Iowa? Is it
21?
Is it 21 again? Yeah. They had it.
It's been 21 for a long time.
Really? Well, I've been old for a long time.
Sometime in the 80s. In the 70s, I think it went from 18 to 19 or something like that, and then it went from 19 to 21, and then it went back to 19, and then back to 21.
I was talking with Trooper Paul Gardner on the air on Tuesday, I think.
He's a good guy.
He's a really good guy, and he's a great public information guy. Trooper Pam was really good, too.
Yeah.
But we talked about, I think we talked a little bit about, it was a terrible accident that happened over in Dubuque County. 3 young men ran from a deputy sheriff over there, and they hit an abutment doing 104 miles an hour, and that was the end, Why they would, I don't know. It's been a long time since I was 18. Well, the driver was 18 and the 2 passengers were 17. That's all the older again, and that's a terrible story. But I was reminded that they did pass a law in Iowa making the legal drinking age 18 because there were a lot of veterans who were 18 or 19 at the time. The Vietnam War was winding down, but there were still a lot of guys coming home on leave who couldn't drink in their home state, and they'd already been veterans of foreign wars. Right. So they passed that law. They bought into that. Yeah, you're right. If you're going to fight for your country, you're going to fight to the death. You should be able to go to the pool hall and have a beer. But then 3 young men, and this was a terrible story, 3 young men, athletes, all members of well-known families in Spencer, were killed in a car accident after they'd been drinking during their senior year. And because of that terrible incident, and it was terrible, they raised the age, I think, again to
back
19.
21 or 19.
I think it was 19 at first to at least get the kids out of high school, and then I think they just went to 21. And I look back on it, of course, in my younger days, I couldn't wait to turn 21, but 21 is not a bad age. You know, there's a big difference. I think there's a big difference in being 18 and 21.
Oh, I would agree. Yeah.
You know, 18, I was still a kid.
There's a big difference between 21 and 25.
There is, and it keeps going right up the ladder.
I've got a 25-year-old, and his maturity has changed this year. I mean, just kind of the way he approaches things in life has just gotten a little more mature about how he reacts to things.
He's been out of the house.
So,
He's learned things. you
Yeah.
know?
Yeah.
Best a parent can do is train them or get them
Try
ready
to,
for the
yeah.
real world, you know.
Yeah.
And that's what schools can do. Well, it's yeah. And you just keep right on going, and all of a sudden you're in the Hy-Vee parking lot.
Where am I? Where am I?
I can't let go of it, man.
I have to put a tracker on you.
So
Keep track of you.
yeah, I'm getting one of those.
Get one of those air tags and stencil it to
Just
your
suppose
neck
that
or
something like that could happen to my phone. I could, anyway, Nevin, I remember his name, Nevin Conrad, when he was
Yeah.
here, talked about the difference between an ATV and a UTV. I didn't even know the difference. So
Yeah.
I'm learning all kinds of things today. So
Yeah.
the UTV is what's going to be allowed in our city streets?
Correct.
Okay.
That's a four-wheeled vehicle with an enclosed cab, or enclosed. It's open air, but it's got like a roll cage. A lot of people enclose them, fully enclose them. There's some rules and restrictions on what qualifies it to be street legal. Don't ask me to recite them.
I won't.
Yeah. There. I mean, I've traveled quite a bit in the last few years around the Midwest, a bunch of different communities. They allow them all over the place.
Yeah, they do.
I mean, I was just up in Wisconsin and saw some just in like a Target parking lot. Somebody took a Target to go get stuff.
Really?
Up by Brainerd, they allow them in the city of Brainerd. I saw them all over the place there. They were everywhere.
No kidding. In Brainerd.
Mm-hmm.
Is that the Paul Bunyan place where they have the big standing
Yeah.
extension?
That's where they had that big drag strip.
Is there a big drag strip up
Yeah, great big one.
there? Okay.
Brainerd, Minnesota, they have they'll have those like jet engine kind of, I mean, shoot flames outside.
No kidding. Wow.
Yeah, it's pretty cool to watch. Yeah, that's a fun area. You got a lot of lakes. There's a lot going on in that area.
For those of you who don't know, in the Brainerd, Minnesota, I think it's just as you come in from Brainerd from the south, they have a huge statue of Paul Bunyan.
Paul Bunyan and Babe the Big Blue
Babe
Ox.
the Big Blue Ox. Yeah, the statue must be 30 feet tall,
Oh, yeah, it's
isn't it?
big. It's probably kind of like the statue going into Pocahontas.
Yeah, at least
it'd
that.
be at least that big, I would
God,
say.
they still got that over there in
Mhm.
Pocahontas? I suppose
Yeah.
they do. I've been over there for, gosh.
I was just through there. What job was I going? We were working up that way. I'm trying to remember where we were working. It doesn't
Well,
matter.
there's an
But I drove
elevator and a
through there and saw
school.
it. Yeah, Pocahontas still has a couple of restaurants. It's a nice little town.
It is. My wife was from Pocahontas County. I got married
Dennis
in Pocahontas.
Plouts is from
That's
Pocahontas.
right. I got married in the Corpus Christi Church right there
Did
in
you?
Pocahontas, Iowa, right on
Yeah.
Highway 3.
They had
Nice
a
church.
Catholic grade school still when I was a kid.
Yeah, that's right. They don't
Yeah,
anymore, do they?
they don't anymore. But
I think
they
just
did when
have-
I was a kid. They had a Catholic grade school, middle school, I think, because I think we even played football against them in middle school. if I
There
remember
used to be
right.
a Pocahontas Catholic high school that Larry Bittner went to. Now, Larry Bittner was a
Oh, yeah. He's a
great athlete.
Major League Baseball player.
Oh, yeah, for a number of years.
Mhm.
And he was a heck of a basketball player, had a mean left hook. He's some years older than I am. Well, Mr. Bittner's deceased now. But, yeah, he was a great athlete in school. And I think there's a Larry Bittner field there for softball.
Oh, probably.
As there should be. I think after his career, he moved back to Pocahontas.
He did. Yeah, he lived in Pocahontas for a long time.
Wow.
Because I think if you went down to Main Street, I can't think of the name of the bar there, he would be in there
Eichler's.
frequently.
The Liberty Inn. That's what it is. Liberty.
There you go. That's it.
Yeah,
He'd
Liberty
be
Inn.
in there having a beer.
That's
He
cool.
had like a table. There was a group of guys were in there, I think, every day around 4:30 having a beer and
Just like
a
every
little
place else.
happy hour and head home, have dinner.
We should distinguish between an ATV and a UTV. An ATV, from what Nevin tells me, is a three-wheeler.
Yeah, it's like it's got this seat. You're out in open air.
Yeah,
Doesn't have a steering wheel. Has handlebars.
handlebars.
So yeah, that's
That's
ATV.
not allowed.
not allowed.
Nevin brought up that Decker Trucking had a little problem with allowing vehicles of this type on Highway P59. You know, having been a truck driver, I'll tell you, sometimes cars are hard to see, let alone
Sure.
those little suckers.
Yeah.
Is there any sort of ordinance that you have to have a flag on these things? Or
Well, I mean, you can ride in to P59 now, I believe, because that's in the county.
did the county pass that?
Yeah, the
Keith
county's
was
had it for a
Keith
long
was
time.
in favor of it. I know.
Yeah, the county's had it for a couple of years now.
Okay.
So I think you could drive them in. You just couldn't drive them inside the city limits.
Okay. Not a because Keith wanted the South 22nd Street bars to benefit from the ATV
Well, I
part.
think he wanted restaurants, bars,
Yeah.
gas stations.
Yeah. We were concerned the city council were fun haters at the time.
I
So-
remember. Yeah. That's always been one of your favorite things is when we don't allow something fun. You're like, fun haters.
I'll
Fun
tell you,
haters.
It's good to hang out with Dinklaw because if anybody knows how to have fun,
Dinklaw does definitely know how to have fun.
he is a fun
Yeah.
lover.
He is. He's always doing something.
He
He's
is.
always either traveling or he's got something going on with grandkids or he's just always got something going.
The guy's
He's
got a
fun
lot
to
of,
hang out with.
He really is.
He and I do a lot of pools and different things together. So like there'll be a football pool or something and he'll call me or text me and
One
like,
in,
hey, you
huh?
want to end half on this one? I'm like, yeah, sure, why not? So, we've won it. One year we bought a bunch of calendars, he and I did from was either-
calendars.
Yep, Ducks Unlimited or one of them was doing a gun calendar. So every week you on the calendar gave you a different number. And this was like a big contest, like multiple states. We won twice.
Wow.
Yeah.
How much
We
did you
split
win?
'em. We won 2 shotguns.
Oh, no kidding.
Yeah. Then I bought both of them.
You
So
bought
I
it.
paid him for half of the value.
Right,
of it.
right.
Yeah.
No,
I still have one of them. The other one I gave to a friend who was a nice little 20 gauge automatic,
mm-hmm.
and I gave it to a friend who was trying to get his young 16 year old son into pheasant hunting, and I said this would be a really good starter gun.
Mm-hmm.
He had already gone out and done some hunting with like a single shot, and he wanted to upgrade him into something else. So I sold him that one pretty inexpensively. Basically, I got my money. I paid Keith back, so the kid got a really nice gun.
Of all the fun things I've heard Keith do, and he once put a cattle tank in the Des Moines River.
He has. He's
and-
actually put that in Twin Lakes too.
Has
Yeah.
and sailed around the. I've never heard him be much of a
He
hunter.
licensed it even, so it was legal to be on the water. Yeah, he went down and got a boat license for it. Yeah,
but I've never
always
heard him
doing
talking
fun stuff.
about hunting. I don't know if he does it or not.
We used to. I haven't gone on the pheasant.
The
hunt
governor's,
trip in a while. No, not the governor's one. Right, Keith and I did the governor's hunt one year together.
When Branstad was
Branstad was the governor, and Keith and I I've been with a group of guys, some Fort Dodge guys, some guys from Texas and other places that go out hunting in South Dakota,
Mm-hmm.
pheasant hunting.
That's right.
Yeah, and
You guys would never invite
the
me.
Dinklaw family used to have a pretty big deer hunt group that did like a pretty good sized deer hunt.
I think they went fishing too.
Yeah,
the
he
Crimmins
goes.
is
Crimmins and Dinklaws are related. And,
somehow. Yeah.
I think Keith's gone on some of those walleye trips. I just went to Canada a couple weeks ago.
Did you?
Mhm.
Did you need a passport?
My
or not?
brother-in-law. Yeah, you got to have a passport. You have to be vaccinated. The rumor had it that Trudeau was going to drop the vaccination requirement to travel between Canada and the U.S. October 1st. So
Mhm.
there might be a little news for you to watch for tomorrow. See if he dropped it today or not. I don't know.
Yeah, I don't know. It's been a long time since I've been up there, but that's
They made it pretty easy. I mean, they have an app. You download the app, you put in your travel itinerary, all that stuff, and then you take a picture of your vaccination card.
They have an app. Canada has an app.
Yeah. It was just a simple app. You answered some questions and you gave them some information, and we pulled up at the border at that St. Francis Bridge there and gave them our passports, and bloop, we were across the border in 5 minutes.
Was the app called
Same way coming back.
Was the app called Canada Fishing or what? Was it
No,
called?
it's let me see. I think I still have it.
I'll try to get it. My son's birthday, as I just mentioned, is coming up, and
It's Arrive Can.
Arrive Can.
Yep. Arrive CAN, all capitals.
Wow.
Yeah.
Good. One of the
It's
greatest.
just a
times.
simple app that you create an account, you put your information in. It was pretty simple.
One of the best times I ever had in my life was up there at the Lake of the Woods, from what I remember.
That's where we were just fishing in Lake of the Woods.
Lake
My
of the Woods.
brother-in-law
Great
and I-
walleye fishing, isn't
Yeah,
it?
yeah, we had a good time.
All
Caught
right.
a lot of fish.
Got-
Ate a
did
lot
you
of
catch
fish.
a lot?
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, I always came back. We did drink up there. I was still drinking in those days, but we got out of hand a couple of times. But I usually came back from Canada after eating the fish
Mm-hmm.
and the crisp air up there.
Oh,
I,
yeah.
I felt better, when
Yeah.
I got back here.
Yeah. It's a beautiful area, Lake of the Woods. We stayed at a resort called Totem Resort
Totem.
in the Sioux Narrows area of Lake of the Woods.
No kidding.
I mean, Lake of the Woods is a huge area.
Mhm.
So,
Did you drive up there? Fly
yep,
up there?
drove.
Yeah, it's an
My
all day
brother-in-law and
drive.
I and a friend of mine who is one of my salesmen sells me stuff to Bimmer Electric.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Was he taking you up there? Was this a?
Yeah, it was one
Was
of
it one of those
deals,
tax?
yeah.
Oh, yeah, you
It's
lucky
one of those
dog.
deals where you know
He was
I-
whining
I
and dining.
spend quite a bit of money with them. So, or Bimmer Electric does that,
Sure.
I should say. So, yeah,
Well-
we got to go up there, and part of it was covered. So,
That's
It was
all.
fun.
It's a good thing then.
yeah,
All right. So you look tired, buddy.
I am tired. Well, it's Friday. It's almost 5:00, and
So you got to come here and unwind. Now you can get
oh,
on
I
to Amigos.
know this is so good for my mental health.
now you can go on down to Amigos
No,
and
I'm
chill
gonna go
and
home, and Michelle and I and some friends are going to dinner at the hacienda that moved in out at Buford's.
is that what? Oh, that's right. They're out there, aren't
Yeah,
they?
the one that was in the mall moved out to the Buford's.
Hey, that's a
location. So
great place.
we're gonna go check it out and see. I've heard good things. So
It's a good spot.
Yeah.
I mean,
So
it
I'm gonna
was.
go have
when
a margarita.
there you go, buddy.
And a cervezas.
There. All right, I'm going to cut you loose, Matt. Cut you loose a couple of minutes earlier.
Thanks, appreciate it.
That's all right, Matt. Mayor Matt Bevering's been our guest. If you, I gave you every opportunity to call, you didn't call, so you missed out. It's 4:54.
Every search